Welcome, dear friends, to the Next Week channel, nextweek.cc blog. The ultimate rationale of this channel is the infinite value of the Orthodox faith, which is the most precious asset the human race has. And the fact that this faith, the life in Christ, is expressed and experienced in time in accordance with a system of cycles which are summarized in the church calendar. So if you are a practicing Orthodox, you will probably be consulting a calendar, maybe a printed calendar or an online one, and making plans accordingly. So this service, if you like, is perhaps best described as a supplement to that. Something to be used as maybe a reminder. So basically a practical system once a week to have a look ahead to the next week to see what is in store in the life of the church. And it's particularly for laity, because I think we're more easily distracted from knowing the details of the calendar. So a clergy or a monastic is by their vocation really bound to know pretty much in detail for the next few weeks. So a parish priest is going to sit down regularly, isn't he, and work out what services he has to hold and so on. So he is less likely to need something like this. But even for them, I hope there are some points of reflection in considering the table that will always be the focus of the message. But for us laity, there are, I think, particular problems. I mean, perhaps many of us hold, the major feasts, the major fasts in our mind. We'll check it when things are approaching. When does the fast start? What's the exact date of the feast? But we do have a lot of distractions with work and family and so on. And many of us perhaps find ourselves just checking the calendar like the evening before or even on the day itself. And that way we can fall into various traps of unpreparedness, such as not being ready for a major weekday feast, not having arranged our work or other commitments in such a way that we can go to liturgy or celebrate properly. Maybe we're sort of unfamiliar with the details of what kind of fast it is on a particular day, or there's some irregular, some less frequent fast that comes up that we miss. Or maybe we're just missing, saints' days, name days, slavas, as we have here in Serbia, and that can be a problem as well. So that's the sort of insurance side of it. But as I said, I hope it's a sort of little summary that helps us to keep the life of the church in mind and think ahead about how we serve God, how we find the treasures of faith, I suppose you could say, in the time ahead. So just to look at the table here, first line is actually the year we're in. So by the Byzantine tradition, we are currently in the 7,533rd year from creation, as it's described in the book of Genesis. This year goes from the beginning of September to the end of August. So that's when it's when it's the 14th of September on the new calendar. That is to say, the first on the old. That's when 7534 will begin. So after that, we have the Sunday. So I'm identifying the weeks basically by the Sunday. So it's the fifth Sunday after Pentecost that's just coming up, which is tone 4 in the 8-tone cycle, which is another one of these cycles that goes from week to week. And they all come together with the other cycles in the calendar. So the next line after that is the actual date according to what's called the Julian calendar or the old calendar, which is the patristic calendar, the church calendar, uh, given by divine revelation, we can say, as the church is the pillar and ground of truth. The line underneath that is the secular calendar, the Gregorian calendar, which is what we have to use in our daily business. But in the eyes of God or in the eyes of the church, it's the line before. Quite a few Orthodox communions use the Gregorian calendar for the cycle of fixed feasts. But this was done without conciliar action. It wasn't a collective action of the church. So we can say that the Julian is the true calendar. And for example, it works much better as a harmonized system. Things like the Apostles' Fast has a normal length with the old calendar, but with the Gregorian, it's often reduced to next to nothing. But that's another story. The next line is what fasting there is. So briefly to introduce what is a fast. In the broader sense, fast is you can't eat meat, including poultry, and you can't eat dairy and eggs. So the word fast means that there is one week in the year before the start of Lent when you can eat dairy and eggs, but not meat and poultry. So that's the only time one needs to make that distinction. So otherwise, fast just means basically vegan, although you can eat invertebrates. So it's not vegan in the stricter sense. This week coming up is the first normal week after the fast of the Apostles, which obviously finishes there because Sunday is the synaxis of the 12, and Saturday was the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul. So it reverts to the usual cycle of Wednesday and Friday fast. Whether a fast is with fish, a fast can be elevated to you're allowed to eat fish if it's a feast of the Lord or the Mother of God or St. John the Baptist. Otherwise, if it's a significant saint, it can be with wine and oil allowed. And if it's just a sort of normal day, it's without oil. Again, plenty of details there, but the detail here varies according to local tradition, according to the esteem in which a particular saint is held. So looking at next week, the Sunday is the synaxis of the Holy, Glorious, All-Praised 12 Apostles. Monday is the memory of the holy, wonder-working, unmercenaries, Cosmas and Damien. And by the way, of course, anyone familiar with us know that every day has many, many saints who are remembered. What I try to do in the table is to put the most well-known ones so that people have a point of reference and they will know saints who are important to them locally or for some other reason, which major saint, if you like, or is the one, or the major festival on that day they can connect it with. Also of significance this week, the Holy Royal Martyrs of Russia, Tsar Nicholas II and his family who were martyred by the Bolsheviks. St. Andrew, Archbishop of Crete, who created the wonderful penitentiary canon that we say in Great Lent. and Venerable Andrew Rublev, who painted or wrote, as they say, that beautiful icon of the Holy Trinity. Um, Venerable Athanasius of Mount Athos and his 6 disciples, with that strange providence, we may say, of how this saint perished or died with his uh, 6 disciples. We can say they entered the kingdom of heaven by an accident, if we can use such a word, that they were inspecting the new building in the church and it collapsed on them. I think it was the dome of the church, as far as I know. And so they entered the glory in that way. Also, Venerable Cisius, the Great of Egypt, I recently found out he's the patron saint of infants, so that's something worth knowing. Um, Now, the remaining 2 sections of the table, one is just a sort of mnemonic um, for the readings of the Sunday, which sets the tone of the week. And this is just my selection. I hope to have selected some sort of topic sentence, as it were. So from the Romans passage, I chose the verse 4, for Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. And the Matthew verse I chose was the first verse, which just introduces that well-known passage about the 2 men possessed with demons who were exorcised, and the swine, the demons were let out into the swine. And then, of course, you have the Troparion. So, what is the tone for Troparion? When the women disciples of the Lord learned from the angel the joyous message of of thy resurrection, they cast away the ancestral curse and elatedly told the apostles, death is overthrown, Christ God is risen, granting the world great mercy. And then the synaxis of the 12 apostles, O first enthroned among the apostles and teachers of the whole world, entreat the Master of all that he grant peace to the world and great mercy to our souls. So there you are, just some of the key points from the coming church week, and I wish you all the best for the rest of this week and for the coming week.